How to solve quadratic equation. This video talks about 3 ways on how to solve quadratic equation. What is a quadratic equation? A quadratic equation is an equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a, b, and c are real numbers and a is not equal to 0. This is called the standard form. There are 3 methods of solving a quadratic equation: solving by factoring, by completing the square, and by the quadratic formula. Factoring is based on the zero product property. In solving the equation by factoring, we arrange the equation into standard form. If the expression is factorable, we can rewrite it as product of two linear expressions. Then we use the zero product property. The zero product property states that if p times q is 0, then either p or q is 0, or both p and q is 0. Example 1. Solve the equation x squared minus 3x plus 2 equals 0. The equation is already in standard form x squared minus 3x plus 2 equals 0, where a is 1, b is negative 3, and c is 2. This is factorable into x minus 1 times x minus 2 is 0. Using the zero product property, x minus 1 equals 0, or x minus 2 equals 0. And therefore we have x equals 1 or x equals 2. Example 2. Solve the equation x squared plus 6x equals 0. This equation is already in standard form. The only difference is the coefficient c is 0. This is factorable into x times x plus x equals 0. Using the zero product property, x equals 0 or x plus 6 equals 0. And the answer is x equals 0 or x equals negative 6. Example 3. Solve the equation 2x squared equals x plus 3. We arrange the equation into standard form. 2x squared minus x minus 3 equals 0. This can be factored into 2x minus 3 times x plus 1 equals 0. Using the zero product property, 2x minus 3 equals 0 or x plus 1 equals 0. And so we have x equals 3 over 2 or x equals negative 1. Another method is by completing the square. The idea is to make the polynomial a perfect square and eliminate the second degree by taking the square root of both sides of the equation. To solve by completing the square, we arrange the equation so that the constant is on the right side. Then divide the equation by a so that the coefficient of x squared is 1. To complete the square, add b squared over 4a squared to both sides of the equation. Factor the expression and take the square root of both sides, then solve the linear equation. Example 4. Solve the equation x squared plus 5x plus 4 equals 0. We arrange the equation so that the constant is on the right side. X squared plus 5x equals negative 4. The coefficient of x squared is already 1, so we don't have to divide the equation by a. Adding b squared over 4a squared to both sides, we have x squared plus 5x plus 25 over 4 equals negative 4 plus 25 over 4. We can write this as x plus 5 over 2 squared equals 9 over 4. Taking the square root of both sides, we have x plus 5 over 2 equals positive or negative square root of 9 over 4. X plus 5 over 2 equals positive or negative 3 over 2. X equals positive or negative 3 over 2 minus 5 over 2. And so we have x equals negative 1 or x equals negative 4. Example 5. Solve the equation 2x squared minus 8x minus 5 equals 0. Arrange the equation so that the constant is on the right side. 2x squared minus 8x equals 5. Divide the equation by a so that x squared minus 4x equals 5 over 2. Add b squared over 4a squared. Take note that a is 2 and b is negative 8. We now have x squared minus 4x plus 64 over 16 equals 5 over 2 plus 64 over 16. X squared minus 4x plus 4 equals 26 over 4. We can now write this as x minus 2 squared equals 26 over 4. Take the square root so that x minus 2 equals positive or negative square root of 26 over 4. X minus 2 equals positive or negative square root of 26 over 2. X equals 2 plus or minus square root of 26 over 2. And so we have x equals 2 plus square root of 26 over 2, or x equals 2 minus square root of 26 over 2. The explicit way to solve a quadratic equation is by the quadratic formula. This method works by direct substitution. All we need to do is identify the coefficients and plug into the formula to get the solution. The formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Example 6. Solve the equation 9x squared plus 3x minus 2 equals 0. The equation is already in standard form and the coefficients are a equals 9, b equals 3, and c equals negative 2. We then apply the formula. X equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 3 squared minus 4 times 9 times negative 2 all over 2 times 9 equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 81 over 18 equals negative 3 plus or minus 9 over 18. So x equals 1/3 or x equals negative 2/3. Example 7. Solve the equation 60x minus 25x squared equals 36. We arrange the equation into standard form. 25x squared minus 60x minus 36 equals 0. The coefficients are a equals 25, b equals negative 60, and c equals negative 36. Using the formula, x equals negative of negative 60 plus or minus square root of negative 60 squared minus 4 times 25 times negative 36 all over 2 times 25 equals 60 plus or minus square root of 0 over 50 equals 6 plus or minus 0 over 5. So x is equal to 6 over 5. So those are the three methods of solving a quadratic equation. I hope this was informative and thank you for viewing.